Hey church, Pastor Mark here. I hope you're having an incredible day. You're watching The Daily, where I take 3 minutes to connect with you and encourage you in your faith. It's all a part of our goal to become a Christ-centered community, driven by the joy of the gospel, to make disciples who make disciples. We memorized scripture together, and last week we worked on Matthew 5:44, which says, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." And this week, we're switching over to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6 says, Matthew chapter 6, verse 3. And Matthew chapter 6, verse 3 says, "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. All right, well, that comes from our passage we studied together yesterday during our worship service. And Jesus really teaching us about motivations, that we should be giving to those in need. We should care about generosity and kindness, but that should be coming from a place of love for Jesus instead of a love for ourselves. And so when we give, we should give out of a concern of God's glory, not our own glory. So don't even let yourself be concerned with what you're doing in your own mind. Don't build yourself up as a great person because you're giving to other people. Instead, build Christ up as glorious in your mind that he's allowed you to be able to participate in his work of kindness and generosity. All right, so that's our memory verse this week, Matthew 6:3. And I hope you were able to catch yesterday's sermon. I thought the passage is especially needed in a time of social media, that we don't seek our own glory, but instead we seek God's glory. And we do that especially in the ways that we're generous and kind to others. But something else that I didn't hit on in the sermon that I think is important to think through is that we should be promoting each other. So while I'm not a self-promoter, or I shouldn't be a self-promoter, I should be a promoter of you. Like I think about someone who is watching this. If you're a part of Provision Church, and you do something, and through the grapevine, it gets back to me. Let's say you give to someone who's in need, and that person in need comes back to me and says, "Mark, man, this person just gave this to me, and I'm so thrilled. They were so great. It was so helpful." I should be quick to go praise that person for doing a kind thing. So that's not their motivation. They didn't seek praise. They didn't seek promotion. But in the way that we encourage each other, we should be quick to go give praise to others. So even like with the church on social media, as a part of the church account, you'll see on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, a lot of times we do post, "Hey church, good job, you did this, church," and that's awesome. We don't see that as a conflict with Matthew 6, 1-4 that we studied yesterday. That's not a self-promotion as much as that's an encouragement. Hey, you're doing good, church. Like, keep up the good work. That's great. And as long as we don't make that self-promotion our priority, then we're being obedient to God's desire to glorify him. And then in encouraging each other, that's even more obedience, that we should be encouragers to each other. Well, let's get back to reading some scripture today. We're going to read Hebrews chapter 11. We'll do it very quickly because this is going to be way longer than 3 minutes today. But here's Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8-12. "By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore." All right, church, I love you, and I'll see you again tomorrow.